Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Jai Sri. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Panachari. Yamuna Tira Panachari. Yamuna Tira Panachari. Yamuna Tira Panachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihare Gopi Jana Bharava Girivardhari Yasoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Brajajana Yasoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Namo Natira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Jaya Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivajakacharya Ashtota Sadishra A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Kota Vaishnavinda ki Namacharya Shri Haridasa Thakur ki Prem Se Guru Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana ki Shri Vrindavan Dham ki Shri Mayapur Dham ki Ganga Maya ki Yamuna Maya ki Tulasi Deva ki Bhakti Deva ki Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki Lord Chaitanya's Harinama Sankirtan ki Brihat Madanga ki Shri Prabhupada ki Gaura Premanandi Grantarashima Bhagavatam ki all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Guru Krishna Prabhupada. Mam Vishnu Vidaya Krishna Vishtaya Bhutale. Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Nami. Namaste Saraswati Devam. Gaudavani Vacharine. Nevasesha Srinivadi. Bhastichari Shatari. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 We are reading today from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 24, Text 28. Today is a very special day, last day of Kartik, is that right? It's also today the disappearance or appearance of Nimbarkacharya. Disappearance. Disappearance? Yeah? No. It's also appearance. Appearance of Nimbarkacharya. is also the day when it's very common in Asia especially, they honor the marriage ceremony of Tulsi Maharani, Tulsi Vivaha Yajna. And today is also Rasa Yatra, Krishna Rasa Yatra, tonight, on the last night of Kartik, last night of Caturmasya, last day of Caturmasya, for those who've been following, and maybe some of you have been following the Caturmasya, I don't know. You've just been eating khichdi off the floor once a day. No spices, no vegetables, no ghee, nothing. A little bit of turmeric maybe. You have to lick it off the floor. You've been doing that here? No? No chocolate? Not much of an austerity which we perform in Caturmasya. Well, Prabhupada did say, or he does write actually, that we should at least follow those 4 ideas. We don't even follow those now. No green leafy vegetables, no milk, no yogurt, no dal, urd dal. Maybe we follow that one. And this is the last day of those who are honouring Bhishma Panchaka. Not something which Srila Prabhupada, as far as we ever heard anyway, ever mentioned or certainly didn't follow. But nonetheless, it is a particular vrata which can be performed for spiritual advancement, for pleasing Krishna. And today is also Purnima, is that correct? Purnima, I heard it's a full eclipse tonight of the moon. Mm-hmm. Full eclipse. Not in Switzerland, but in half the world. India, Central Asia, and North Russia, Soviet, whatever it's called, Russia. And all here in the center there, all the way down. So, please bear that in mind if you take those things into account. Full eclipse of the moon. Rahu's on the move. So today we're reading the songs, chanting the song sung by Lord Shiva. Very nice. Text number 28, am I correct? Yak param rang hasak sakshat.
Yak param rang hasak sakshat.
Triguna Shiva Sangitat.
Triguna Shiva Sangitat.
Bhagavantang Vasudevang.
Bhagavantang Vasudevang.
Prapanaksa Priyohime.
Prapanaksa Priyohime.
Yak param rahasa sakshat.
Yak param rahasa sakshat.
Triguna Shiva Sangitat.
Triguna Shiva Sangitat.
Bhagavantang Vasudevang.
Bhagavantang Vasudevang.
Prapanasa Priyohime.
Prapanasa Priyohime.
Yak parang ranghasak sakshat.
Yak param rahasa sakshat.
Triguna Shiva Sangitat.
Triguna Shiva Sangitat.
Bhagavantang Vasudevang.
Bhagavantang Vasudevang.
Prapanaksa Priyohime.
Prapanasa Priyohime.
Yak parang ranghasak sakshat.
Yak param rahasa sakshat.
Triguna Shiva Sangitat.
Triguna Shiva Sangitat.
Bhagavantang Vasudevang.
Bhagavantang Vasudevang.
Prapanaksa Priyohime.
Prapanasa Priyohime.
Ya parang ranghasa sakshat.
Yak parang ranghasak sakshat.
Triguna jiva samjita.
Triguna Jiva Sangitat.
Bhagavantam Vasudevang.
Bhagavantang Vasudevang.
Prapanasa priyohime.
Prapanaksa. Come on.
Param Brahmasa Sakshat
Yat Parang Brahmasa Sakshat
Triguna Jiva Sangitat
Triguna Jiva Sangitat
Bhagavantam Vasudevam
Bhagavantam Vasudevam
Pannasa Priyohime
Prapanaksa Priyohime. Ladies. Mataji's. Yak Parang Brahmasa Sakshat Triguna Jiva Sangitat Bhagavantam Vasudevam Prapanaksa Priyohime. Anyone else? Yaha. Anyone. Param. Transcendental. Ranghasaha. Of the controller. Sakshat. Directly. Trigunat. From the three modes of material nature. Jiva Sanghitat. Living entities called by the names Jivas. Bhagavantam, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vasudevam, unto Krishna. Papanaha, surrendered. Saha, he. Priyaha, very dear. He, undoubtedly, may, of me. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So Lord Shiva is speaking to the sons of King Pashini Mahishat, who were performing austerities, sent to perform austerities, and now they're going to hear from Lord Shiva, who knows that ultimately they're going to worship Krishna, so this prayer is appropriate for them. Any person who is surrendered to the Supreme Any person who is surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, the controller of everything, material nature as well as the living entity, is actually very dear to me. This is Lord Shiva speaking. Right from, you can say, the source of Lord Shiva. Any person who is surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and particularly Vasudeva or Krishna is mentioned, the controller of everything, material nature as well as the living entity, is actually very dear to me, dear to Lord Shiva. Purport. It's quite a long purport, so try your best to tune in. Now Lord Shiva explains the reason he has personally come before the princes. It is because all the princes are devotees of Lord Krishna, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 7:19. Bahunang ramanam mante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudeva sarvam iti samahatma sadurlabha. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Lord Shiva is rarely seen by common men. And similarly, a person who is fully surrendered unto Vasudeva, Krishna, is also very rarely seen, because a person who is fully surrendered unto the Supreme Lord is very rare. Sa Mahatma Sadurlabha. They're simply very rare, so they're rarely seen. It's not that they're hiding away necessarily, but they're just not they're not very common in this world. One is fully surrendered. Extremely rare. Vasudeva is also mentioned in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam in the mantra Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Since Vasudeva is the ultimate truth, Lord Shiva openly proclaims that one who is a devotee of Lord Vasudeva, who is surrendered to Lord Krishna, is actually very dear to him. Lord Vasudeva, Krishna, is worshipable not only by ordinary living entities, but by demigods like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma and others. Yang Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutok Stuvanti Devyaistavai. The 12th canto of Bhagavatam, Krishna is worshipped by Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Varuna, Indra, Chandra, and all other demigods. That is also the situation with a devotee. Indeed, one who takes to Krishna consciousness immediately becomes very dear to anyone who is simply finding out and beginning to understand what Krishna consciousness actually is. Interesting, Prabhupada, we could say, clarifies or mentions these points here, becomes very dear, although devotee of dear, oh dear, Ajano Priyo Priyakaro. He has no enemy, and he's dear to the ruffians as well as the gentle, although they may not appreciate the devotee due to their being covered by the modes of nature. But here Prabhupada says that the devotee becomes very dear to anyone who is simply finding out and beginning to understand what Krishna consciousness actually is. So particularly those who are endeavoring or participating in the activities of Krishna consciousness, even in the neophyte stages, generally, they may sometimes make offense, but generally speaking, the devotee becomes the surrendered devotee becomes very dear to them. Very dear. Because they know, anyone on the path of bhakti knows it's the grace of the pure devotees that we can progress in our spiritual life by their mercy. Similarly, all the demigods are also trying to find out who is actually surrendered to Lord Vasudeva. Because the Pracheta princes were surrendered to Vasudeva, Lord Shiva willingly came forth to see them. He was eager to see them because they were devotees. Maybe they're not completely realized yet, but they are devotees of Lord Vasudeva or Krishna. Lord Vasudeva or Krishna is described in Bhagavad Gita as Purushottam. Purushottam. Actually, he is the supreme enjoyer, Purusha, and the supreme Uttama as well, topmost enjoyer. He is the enjoyer of everything, the Prakriti and the Purusha. Being influenced by the three modes of material nature, the living entity tries to dominate material nature. But actually he is not the Purusha, or the enjoyer, but Prakriti, as described in Bhagavad Gita 7.5. Aparayamitastvanyang prakriting vidime param. Thus the jiva, or living entity, is actually Prakriti, or the marginal energy of the Supreme Lord. Being associated with material nature, he tries to lord it over the material nature. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 15.7. Mam evangso jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana manaksastani indriyani prakriti-stani karshati. The living entities in the conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the 6 senses, which include the mind. By endeavoring to dominate material nature, the living entity simply struggles hard for existence. Indeed, he struggles so hard to enjoy himself that he cannot even enjoy the material resources. We have to work so hard to get a little bit of pleasure, at least in our present situation. Maybe in the heavenly planets they're reaping rewards or the results of their austerities, their piety and so on. But on this planet particularly, one has to work hard. Some people, due to good karma, may start off their life, they may be living in a so-called opulent situation, a very materially fortunate situation, but that doesn't guarantee they're going to be happy either. Not at all. They may have so much wealth, it doesn't mean you can enjoy it. Thus, he is sometimes called Prakriti or Jiva, for he is situated in the marginal potency. When the living entity is covered with the 3 modes of material nature, he is called Jiva Sangita. That word was here in the verse or not? Yes or no? Sangita? Yes, it is. Yeah, there it is. Jiva Sangita. Living entities called by the name Jivas. But here it describes it, that is those who are in this conditional world covered by the 3 modes of nature. There are 2 kinds of living entities. One is called Kshara and the other Akshara. We read this on Sunday actually. Interesting. Kshara refers to those who have fallen down and become conditioned. And Akshara refers to those who are not conditioned. The vast majority of living entities live in the spiritual world and are called Akshara. They are in the position of Brahman, pure spiritual existence. They are different from those who have been conditioned by the 3 modes of material nature. Being above both the Kshara and Akshara, Lord Krishna, Vasudeva, is described in Bhagavad Gita as Purushottam. The impersonalist may say that Vasudeva is the impersonal Brahman, but actually the impersonal Brahman is subordinate to Krishna, as also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 14:27. Brahmano hi pratishtaham. That Krishna is the source of the impersonal Brahman is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Brahma Samhita 540. Yasya prabhava bhavato jagadanda koti. The impersonal Brahman is nothing but the effulgence or bodily rays of Krishna. And in those bodily rays there are innumerable universes floating. Thus in all respects, Vasudeva Krishna is the Supreme Lord. And Lord Shiva is very satisfied with those who are completely surrendered to him. Complete surrender is desired by Krishna, as he indicates in the last chapter of Bhagavad Gita 18:66, famous verse. Sarva dharma parityagya mamekam sharanam braja. The word sakshat, meaning directly, is very significant. There are many so-called devotees, but actually they are only karmis and jnanis, for they are not directly devotees of Lord Krishna. The karmis sometimes offer the results of their activities to Lord Vasudeva, and this offering is called karmarpanam. These are considered to be fruitive activities, for the karmis consider Lord Vishnu to be one of the demigods, like Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, because they consider Lord Vishnu to be on the same level with the demigods. They contend that surrendering to the demigods is as good as surrendering unto Vasudeva. This contention is denied herein, because if it were true, Lord Shiva would have said that surrender unto him, Lord Vasudeva, Vishnu or Brahma, is the same. However, Lord Shiva does not say this because he himself surrenders unto Vasudeva. And whoever else surrenders unto Vasudeva is very, very dear to him. This is expressed here in openly. The conclusion is that a devotee of Lord Shiva is not dear to Lord Shiva, but a devotee of Lord Krishna is very dear to Lord Shiva. Interesting. Not dear to him. Good. We can see this also in a sense in amongst a association of devotees, even the spiritual master. You could say, well, maybe not, maybe dear to some extent at least, maybe the devotee of the spiritual master is more dear. Or the devotee of the spiritual master is more dear. In this example, we understand that the devotee of the devotee is more dear. That although serving the spiritual master directly is indeed very great fortune, but to serve the devotees of the devotee of the spiritual master is even more. This is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's, one of his cardinal instructions. Gopi Bhatta Pada Kamala Dasa 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 Anadasaha. To be the servant of the servant is most dear to the Lord. Here Lord Shiva was talking about worshipping the Lord Vasudeva. Those who worship Lord Vasudeva are more dear than those who worship him. Slightly different, but the principle, you could say, is the same. Because it's what pleases most. The whole essence of this subject matter here is as Krishna is the Purusha, he's the supreme controller, enjoyer. We are Prakriti, nature. We try in this material world to be Purusha. Everyone, man, woman, animal, everyone is trying to imitate Krishna as the Purusha. It's not our nature. Our nature is, as we just heard, our nature is Prakitamsam. We are meant to be, we may be higher than, a little bit, we're higher than material nature, a higher energy. Besides this inferior nature, there's another energy of mind, which are all the living entities struggling in this material world, trying to control over the material energy. Material energy is lower, in that sense. We're marginal, but it's not our business to try to enjoy Krishna's energy. Krishna arranges it like this to facilitate those who wish to try to enjoy independently. But it's not our real business. Our real business is to utilize that energy for the pleasure of Krishna. In the spiritual world, we, the living entities themselves, are superior or engaged in the superior sense, simply living for the pleasure of Krishna. But in this world we practice, just like the Praketas are going to practice bringing pleasure to Krishna. This is the process of devotional service. And anyone who takes to this process of devotional service becomes very dear to the devotees, however small they may be. The more we're surrendered, the more pleasing one becomes. It's not so much about achieving relative results, but more the consciousness of surrender. A very, very simple process, Prabhana. It was very famous, of course, in the Sri Sampradaya. Today is the appearance of Nimbarkacharya in the Kumara Sampradaya, but in the Sri Sampradaya, Ramanujacharya being the Acharya of that Sampradaya, very much he emphasizes this point of prapanama, surrender, as the only means of attaining perfection. Even it doesn't matter who one is. It's very easy. One time he was talking to some of his followers, asking they're inquiring how to attain their goals. He said, very simple, just by surrender. Sounds very easy, but he demonstrated that when he asked them to leave the room. And they were outside and they were kind of looking through the window and this and that. And he called one very poor man. He was just a tailor or something, maybe even blind, I can't remember, but a tailor. And he came there. The man was very, very simple. And he came before Ramanujacharya. So Ramanujacharya said to him, touch my feet. And he just bowed down, just embraced the feet of Ramanujacharya in full surrender. Just to demonstrate how simple it is. Simple in the sense that there is no false ego. There's no, expectation. There's no desire to be, recognized by others, etc. Just a natural flow of surrender. The mood of surrender. This is the constitution, the nature of the marginal energy. We surrender. We surrender to the material energy and we struggle, trying to control it, but actually we're basically controlled by it. We have to surrender. And we surrender to Krishna, or we have to surrender to his external energy. The form of birth and death, old age and disease and so on. Oh, this process, this program here, given here in the transformation of this, it's not so much the energy, but our relationship with it. Of seeing the material energy as the energy of Krishna, seeing ourselves also as Prakriti, the energy of the Lord, and learning how to act accordingly. This is the practical process of surrender. It's not very philosophically complicated. It's quite simple, but not so easy to apply maybe. We're so conditioned after so many lifetimes of endeavoring, struggling in this material with the six senses, which includes the mind. Lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, one becomes very fortunate. Ramandavamite Om Bhagavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasadi Bhai Bhakti Lata Page. One may become very fortunate to meet a pure devotee of the Lord. It's extremely rare, as this verse describes. Extremely rare to have that opportunity. Because by that association, after wandering up and down through the universes, one may get the opportunity to meet with a pure devotee of the Lord. By their mercy, one gets the mercy of Krishna. One can be delivered from this material world. One has to get the mercy of a Vaishnava. Nishtara Pariyachake, a Vaishnava Char Nishtara Pariyachake. One without service to the devotees of the Lord, no one can get released from this material conditioning. It's essential to serve the Vaishnavas. Practically speaking, the primary principle in the path of devotion is to try to please the devotees. This way Krishna is more pleased than if we try to please him. How's that verse go? Akshno palam pradishagata sangam. You know this verse? Kano palam pradisha. I can't remember it. We used to, one of our favorite verses, to see a pure devotee of the Lord, to have the chance to touch the pure devotee, to hear from the pure devotee. This is the perfection of life. It's very rare, because such a devotee is indeed very, very rare. So to get that opportunity is the greatest good fortune. His devotees, they rarely appear in this world, or they appear, but we rarely see them. Sometimes they are not manifesting. We see from the prayers of Prahlad Maharaj how many great saintly persons they remain out of sight, practically speaking, maybe in the jungles or the mountains. But his prayers, no. He wants to go to the places where the conditioned souls are residing, to be merciful. Prominent aspect or character of these great souls is compassion. The feeling of paradukha, how they feel greatly distressed to see the distress of others. They cannot tolerate to see. Part and parcel of this verses, this purport is mentioned, Mami Bangsa Jiva Loke, where the Lord's eternal, meant to be parts and parcels. But forgetting our role, then we struggle with our senses. So the great devotees, they feel very sad to see the condition of the living entities in this world. Not just because the living entities are suffering do the devotees feel compassion, but they feel compassion because we are part and parcel of the Lord. Krishna is the Father of all living entities. Just imagine if the Father's children drift away, the Father naturally feels unhappy. Greatest satisfaction is when they return to their family. Our real family is the spiritual one. So the devotee feels greatly sad that Krishna's parts and parcels are, by their own desire, their own will, they have desired to separate themselves from Krishna, try to be independent. Krishna gives them, by his will, he gives us that facility. But the real will of the Lord, of the devotees rather, is to reunite the living entity with Krishna. This will bring great pleasure to Krishna, just like to a father when we reunite the child with the parent. Or we could give our own body as an example. We have many parts and parcels in the body. If they are separated, say the finger, the greatest thing you can do is to reconnect that finger with the body. That will bring pleasure to the whole. So to bring pleasure to Krishna is the constitution, the nature of the soul. We have this choice, the marginal living entity has affection and aversion as its choices. But the eternal choice, the highest choice is to be affectionate towards Krishna. So the pure devotees, they try to awaken that affection within us towards Krishna. Then we can be pleased, satisfied. Krishna is the reservoir of pleasure. So if one enters into that reservoir, then one automatically feels pleasure. You don't have to struggle. The constitution of material world is ananda, blissful. One just has to enter into that atmosphere through the process of devotional service. So maybe those like to ask some questions, comments on this verse. Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Maharaj. My question is about surrender. Can you talk more about surrender? How do we totally surrender, and what are the signs that we are surrendering? Thank you.
As they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects. Misunderstood, as this purport also indicates sometimes, that conditioned souls equate the various servitors of the Lord or the parts of the Lord being absolutely the same with Vasudeva. No doubt they're connected, everything is connected to Krishna. Everything. And everything is to be used in Krishna's service. The demigods are Krishna's agents in this world, doing the particular duties assigned to them. And ignorant people may not understand the nature of spiritual, real spirituality. They're engaged in karma, maybe the pursuit of jnana, etc. Approaching certain aspects of the Absolute, or approaching limbs, or approaching agents to try to facilitate their independent desires. They may surrender to those persons, but they have a motive, a selfish motive, a desire to fulfill their own personal agendas. An example is given in the 8th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, I think it's the 8th canto, Bali Maharaj. Bali Maharaj is generally cited as an example of Atmanivedana. Give full surrender. 9 processes of devotional service, surrendering completely. So he's normally given an example, but when we examine the situation even a little bit more deeply, one sees that there's still something a little short of that. When Bali Maharaj was agreed to give Lord Vamanadeva 3 steps of land, even in knowledge that this may be the end of his, dominance of the universe. And sure enough it was. And Lord Vamanadeva, with 2 steps, took the whole universe, practically speaking, at least up to the higher planets, not the topmost, but he took the whole universe, practically. And Bali Maharaj was made a promise, 3 steps. So what to do? He could say he surrendered everything that was in his power to surrender. And then he thought, no, I must fulfill my promise. There's still an element there of being the doer, of surrendering, of giving, of whatever. So he thought, please, he placed his head in front of the Lord, and Lord Vamanadeva placed his lotus foot on the head of Bali Maharaj. In this way he fulfilled his promise. Very nice example of surrender. However, Vindhyavali, his wife, was not impressed. Not impressed. She chastised her husband. You could say from the material point of view, he's given everything away. Even her saris, her shoes, her kitchen, everything's gone. We never even consulted with her. But that wasn't the reason why she chastised him. She called him an agnostic fool. You agnostic fool. You're still thinking that you have something to give. When will you realize that nothing is yours? Everything, including you, everything is his already. We have to surrender this very idea that there's anything existing which is not meant for the pleasure of Krishna. Every moment, every breath, every thought, everything is meant for the pleasure of Krishna. That's one example on one level of surrender. How can one saying, I can't remember the word you use, see, how can one recognize the mood of surrender? From an unsurrendered platform, it's not always easy. We may not recognize it. We may think that this particular person is affected by the modes of nature. They're becoming angry. They're behaving like Arjuna. I mean, well, we could, if you read the Bhagavad Gita, you'll understand. But from an external point of view, it may look odd. There he is, killing. Doesn't look like a devotee, the mood of a devotee, because he surrendered to Krishna. But in many ways, the devotee sometimes acts in a way which is misunderstood by persons who don't understand the essence of devotional service. It's about the intention, the attitude, the reason, what's within, not without. Without may or may not be so easily recognizable. That the internal intention is simply to bring pleasure to Krishna. Is not necessarily seen like that, but in the public eye. Like Srila Prabhupada sometimes will become apparently angry. At one time, to give it a simple example, in Amsterdam when he was installing the deities of Jagannath, Prabhupada became quite angry. Quite angry. You could say, why is he getting so angry? What's he so attached about? You know, he should be peaceful. Should be peaceful. Even one hippie boy said that. Why don't you chant Hare Krishna? And Prabhupada was getting very angry. Why was he getting angry? Not on his own account. Not at all on his own account. He had nothing on his own account. Only Krishna. It was simply for Krishna. Well, how can you do this? How can you do it? How can you make such bad arrangements for the pleasure? I've invited Krishna and you're making such bad arrangements. Prabhupada was very upset. Very upset. It was a lesson. It's hard for a materialistic person to relate with. Our devotees were, even Jesus Christ was angry when he went into the temple and saw all kinds of mundane businesses taking place. Yes. Offense against the Lord. A pure devotee cannot bear offense against the Lord when they've surrendered to Krishna. If it brings displeasure to Radharani, displeasure to Krishna, he can't bear it. So he lives. Sometimes he has to tolerate, you could say, in order to bring that to awaken the living entities to realize that in his heart it's unbearable. That living entities are offending his Lord. It's intolerable. You can see this in the case of Lord Chaitanya when Jagai and Madai were offending Lord Nityananda. So surrender. I mean, there are many practical aspects. The devotee has no more interest in sense gratification, the objects of this world. He's not affected when he personally is offended. He's always chanting Bhagavad Gita. Krishna explains the nature of these souls. They're always glorifying the Lord. And so many characteristics are there, but from the conditional point of view, and even that isn't necessary. Ramdas, one devotee, Ramdas, I think, came to Jagannath Puri. One devotee came to Jagannath Puri and was always chanting the holy names of the Lord, constantly chanting. And when he came there, and Sri Damodar partly ignored him. Because he had another intention. He wanted to be recognized. He had a desire also for impersonal liberation. You can't always tell by the external symptoms. It's an internal factor. It comes out in due course of time, no doubt. But we should try to follow the path. One who's dedicating themselves to to the path of the Mahatmas, the great souls. No matter what, the devotee sticks to, holds on to the service to the pure devotees. It's a surrendered soul. And on the higher level, there's a difference between surrendering everything and being a surrendered soul. Bali Maharaj, you could say, surrendered everything, but Vinjabali was a surrendered soul. Prabhupada said she was far more advanced than her husband on another level. They're showing an example, you could say. The principle of being a surrendered soul. We have nothing to surrender. We don't have anything to surrender. But the process of realizing that we have to practice surrendering what we think is ours. This body, this mind, our intellect, whatever possessions we may have, our time. But all this is Krishna's energy. It's a matter of recognizing everything belonging to Krishna. It's a really surrendered soul, or the real mood of surrender. But in the spiritual world, that's the normal mood. It's just not very common in this material world. And we see, we have this good fortune to be someone who lives for Krishna's pleasure. Like Prabhupada. Simply lives for Krishna's pleasure. There's no other agenda. Everything about them is for Krishna's pleasure. We still have an element of for my pleasure. We feel, we like to feel good or whatever it may be. Devotee doesn't even want or expect to feel good. They just want Krishna to feel good. They want the other devotees to feel good. Hard to recognize sometimes when we're still so motivated, we're still so attached, etc. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Anything else? Okay. Yes?
Maharaj, just on this point that you were to speak about internal versus external. Yesterday I was speaking with a devotee and he was saying that he found that his chanting is very mechanical and...
Who is this?
A devotee.
A devotee found their chanting mechanical?
Yeah, and he was saying that actually he found that his motivation is not to please Krishna, but he just does it as a duty. And then he struggles to see how this should be.
Is this kind of an example, or is this a real event?
Real event.
Okay.
And this devotee actually, he pretty much stops chanting because he thinks there's no use if it's just forcing himself to do it. And then the question he asked is, why should we focus on the externals, just doing our 16 rounds, and, rather than just chant with actual, affection and focus.
I think I got the point. Well, we've heard all the theory and all the answers to these type of things, Vaidhi Bhakti, Raganuga Bhakti, and so on and so forth. It's obvious you can't, it's not one or the other. It's true that if one who's on that platform of chanting with affection or love within the heart, devotion, etc., there's not a necessary need for the formalities or the mechanics, the externals. They're already connected with Krishna. But generally we're not on that level. Generally, especially if somebody makes a statement like that, that usually indicates, you can understand that ultimately that's what we're meant to be. But we're not there, and what is the process of reaching that? Okay, the mechanics become dry, they don't have that taste, whatever it is we've got in our motivation for chanting, whatever is there. And that's the test of our sincerity. If one is sincere, it's not that we just blindly carry on. If we see that our chanting or service is becoming dry, or it's already mechanical in one sense. Mechanical, Prabhupada describes as being offensive. So that's already there. So we make an endeavor for our service through service of Vaishnavas and through trying to hear the sound of the holy name without offense. Make an endeavor to cultivate pure chanting. Mechanical chanting is inattentive chanting. Do we make that endeavor? It may take some time. We make that endeavor to progress in spiritual life. A lot depends on our association of devotees. If we sincerely desire to come to that state of consciousness, then how we associate is very important, and how we hear the words of these pure devotees and apply them in our lives. Sometimes we just read them and they just kind of go in one ear and out the other. They're meant for application. We read Nectar Instruction, any of the literatures giving us directives in practical devotional service. We're advised to apply these principles. They're also for chanting the Hare Krishna mantras, 16 rounds or whatever is, Prabhupada said of all the instructions is the most essential, but that doesn't mean to say alone it will stand. Other activities have to be there too. Very important. We have to share that. We have to preach Krishna consciousness. But Prabhupada said if you don't preach this Krishna consciousness, you will not be able to go on with your Hari balls. For whatever reason. We have to share it. If we don't share it, the tendency is the anarthas, especially envy, becomes more prominent. We often find that we get caught up in fault finding, either finding fault in other devotees, fault in the process, fault in the guru, fault in the institution, fault in everything, except for ourselves. This is a tendency. And, of course it can happen in any situation, but particularly when we're in this mood of trying to share what we've gotten, we're generally more protected from that tendency to get caught up in very many negativities which certainly erode any chance we have of developing or for the growth of the Bhaktilata Beej to grow healthily. No fruits will come from such a plant that is full of, you're only going to get thorns, fault finding and so on, not very comfortable. You lose attraction. Krishna naturally covers himself, you won't get a taste. A taste in the holy name. Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj says, to get a taste in the holy name, the key, the gateway is service to Vaishnavas. Service to Vaishnavas is not just mechanically chanting, it must be accompanied with service to the Vaishnavas. And the more we can develop this mood of service to the Vaishnavas, and Krishna is pleased. He can help us to remove these coverings, these anarthas, these blocks, this salt in the sweet rice. Naturally, it's not going to be very tasty. But if we put salt in the sweet rice, we're definitely not going to get a taste. You don't want to keep drinking sweet rice if it's salty. You have to follow the process in the association of devotees. We hear all these things. But it comes down to sincerity. Sincerity of purpose. Do we really want? Do we really want to surrender? Are we yet at that point? Probably not. Surrender is something. There's a process of gradual surrender, no doubt. In the association of devotees, it becomes possible. But if we, in any way, association with devotees doesn't mean just being around, but to render service to the Vaishnavas, to appreciate, to hear from, etc. So by the mercy of the Vaishnavas, we can make some progress in spiritual life. Krishna is pleased and removes these doubts from our heart. Doubts are like deviation or attraction, or they're effects of anartha at various times. So, a naturally common thing when we're on the path of devotional service, that slipping or becoming over-familiar or whatever in our line or our devotional efforts. It's quite common. That's why it's so important to have regular sangha, regular hearing and chanting, and reminding, a little bit of inner perspective, finding out what is there within our own heart which is holding us back. There's always something. And don't in any time blame or point the finger at others because of this one, because of that one, because of this, because of that. The heart will never change like that. Pry not into the frailties of others, look within, mend thyself. When faults in others elude, bewilder us, look within, find out one's own faults. Only those who, in this world of so much disturbance, only those who attend the kirtan, will be protected. There's so many indications, and each and every individual is obviously different, and the reasons may be slightly different. But the essential feature is the protection of the Sangha, of the devotees. Okay, Hare Krishna, thank you. We'll finish there today. Srila Prabhupada this morning. This evening is the last evening of Kartik Vrata, so hopefully we can all get this opportunity to gather together and absorb ourselves in this wonderful Sangha, this wonderful opportunity to meditate or to absorb our hearts in the pastime of Yasoda Damodar, which spreads or goes further than just that pastime. It's the whole essence of devotional service, becoming free of all motivations, and just to wish how to bring pleasure to Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Kantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaura Premanand.